This episode we're going to be covering the engine prep and transmission install into the van. The last few episodes we've went through all of the burned components underneath the rear hatch. We repainted everything with an epoxy undercoat, and then insulated and sound deadened everything. We also went over all that with an aluminum firewall cover, and everything's ready for install. Going to be installing these swing arms today. It took me a while to find this bolt. I ended up going to a local fastener supply company and they had them in stock. It's a M12 by 1.25, which is a fine thread. Make sure you get a fine thread, not the 1.75, and then it's by 100 length. Got a locking nylon washer for it, so it will not rattle out, and has plenty of room on there for washers and to go through the bushings. So this ended up costing me about 14 bucks for all the bolts, washers, and the nuts. So $13 versus 50 bucks online. The big news for today is that the transmission is in the van. Yeah, I'm stoked. Roll under there. I think it looks absolutely killer in there. I got all the paneling riveted in, and that part of the engine bay, I'm happy to say, is 100% done. Now that the transmission's in, I got my order for the transmission accessory kit. This is the transmission reverse switch. Here are two just miscellaneous boots that go on the shifter here. That shifter boot is melted and cracked up, so I bought a new one, and this one goes on the ball. I also bought a new slave cylinder for the clutch and a braided stainless steel line for that, and that will pretty much wrap up the transmission. I have another order for some new boots coming in, and then I'm also going to break down and buy the adapter for the starter. I just don't have time to make one right now, so biting the bullet, spending 80 bucks and buying one online. A huge step getting the transmission in there. I had to repaint a bunch of brackets and get all that aluminum work done, but it's all riveted in, sealed up, and ready to go down the road. Another thing I forgot to mention, I got both the trailing arms in. Brand new bushings, brand new hardware, powder coated, new spring perch. Just working on the hubs and all that right now, painted them all up. Those are going in next, and then the springs. Then once I get all that work done, the van will finally be back on all four tires. Pretty late last night, I finally got my bearing case in along with my hub. I got the springs sitting in here. As you can tell, they don't look great. They got a lot of soot and crap on them, so I'm gonna clean them up best I can, but I think they just might look bad for a while. And I also don't have a bottom spring perch, like the little rubber grommet. Go Westie's out of stock, so I'm gonna have to wait on those. So I'm also waiting on the disc brake conversion kit. I haven't ordered it yet. It's about 700 bucks, so it's gonna really hurt to order that one. But I gotta get brakes on this, and I also am waiting for some wheel studs I bought from my local Volkswagen shop. Once the studs come in, at least I'll be able to sit the van down on wheels and roll it around without brakes. So with the intake, I just started by cutting off all the extra tabs and mounting surfaces that I don't want. I'm also gonna cut this right here and probably somewhere around here and just rotate that 180 degrees so it's a little bit more streamlined. Just to wrap up the day, here's my intake I made. It's kind of a funky little elbow, but I think it'll give enough airflow for the little motor here. After building the intake, I made a little mount and put the boost gauge in there. That'll hook up to the ECU and just go around to the front of the motor. I've only got a few more things to do and then the engine can go in the bus. The turbo needs to be rotated so the output is coming up. That way I can kind of elbow it, go into the cooler, and go back into the motor. I also need to modify the drain. The drain's got to come out to the oil pan. I've got to get the new feed line for the oil into the turbo, the braided steel one. So I've also got to cut this metal coolant pipe right here and cap it because I don't need all these extra fittings. I ended up deciding to use this plastic OEM fitting. I tried to weld this like $10 Amazon special one, but the aluminum on it was very poor quality, so I could not get a good bead on it. So that's going in the trash, and I'm just using this. This side goes to my heater core, so I'll just be able to elbow it and go back. I don't think it'll look very bad, but I wish I could have done the aluminum and made it really trick, but once I figure out the cooling system, then I can put the motor in. I have a lot more that I would like to do to the motor, like cleaning everything up, but I just do not have time before this show. I've got to get this thing on the road, and then I'll do aesthetic projects later on once I get this thing running. I hope you enjoyed the video. Making solid progress in the van. I've got until April 12th to get this thing up and running, to take it to Medicine Park for the show. I think that it's going pretty smoothly. I'm out of town for about 10 days, so I've got less than a month of workable time to get this thing going. I understand why it takes people so long to do their swaps now. I started out very optimistic, thinking this would be a quick job, but the fire damage was pretty extensive. I'm glad we got the interior done. Super happy with the interior. Engine bay came out great, and it's just waiting for a motor. So tune in next episode for the motor install. I think that's going to be its own video, is just getting the motor into the bus, and then maybe trying to crank it over, depending on if I get the parts in or not. That'll decide if I get to fire it up or not.